You know, I'm running for the United States Senate. Tomorrow is a very, very important time. This election is critical to this nation. For whatever reason, God has put me in this election at this time, and all the nation is watching. All Washington is watching to see what the people of Alabama do tomorrow.
It's Friday, November 10th, 2017. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Out the Coop podcast. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Each week, I talk to our Capitol muckraker-in-chief, Sean Kitchen, about the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. On today's show, we've got our Election Day wrap-up as Democrats and DSA members win big in Pennsylvania and across the country. And, of course, there's Alabama Senate Republican candidate Roy Moore, just called out for sexually assaulting minors when he's the assistant district attorney. Alabama State Auditor Jim Ziegler says it's just like Joseph and Mary. And without them, you get no Jesus, so where'd we be? Why is Chuck Schumer looking out for his Republican friends? Dude, wake up, man. Donna Brazile's book continues to piss off Democrats. No surprise there. Huge electoral wins across the country is going to occupy a big portion of today's show. We're going to see big wins in Virginia, including a huge win by Lee Carter, a proud DSA member who toppled VA Majority Whip Republican Jackson Miller despite his deep pockets, man. Woo! Danica Roem become the first ever transgender woman to be elected to statewide office in Virginia. She beat out the crusty Republican Robert Marshall, who was the leading voice behind the discriminatory bathroom bills targeting transgender men and women. Virginia Democrats also come close to flipping the House of Delegates. Unreal. And we'll run through some of the huge wins by DSA members and Our Revolution endorsed candidates. Lots of reverse coattails this election, it looks like. How significant are these wins? We're going to get into that on today's members-only show. Chester County and Delco Democrats win historic elections. Lehigh Valley Democrats win big. Both Pittsburgh DSA endorsed candidates win local judge races. Former Green Party member Michael Helfrich becomes the next mayor of York, winning on the Republican ticket of all things. Huge shout out to Raging Chicken's newest writer, Vanessa Baker, for her reporting on that race. Unelectable Larry Krasner wins huge 40-point win in Philadelphia against the Republican Beth Grossman. And Dr. Colleen Clemens from our friends over at Inside 254 podcast is now getting trolled by right-wing freaks after she tweets about toxic masculinity following the horrific shooting in Texas this past weekend. Following her interview by the Washington Free Beacon, she has now been targeted by InfoWars, Daily Wire, and other publications sponsored by the Demons of the Deep. Lots of beer news today from brewed and bottled craft beer shop on the New York-Canadian border. That's right. I actually had to go up there for my grandmother's funeral. She was 99 years old, but while in town in Lewiston, New York, found this great little place, and I'll talk about that a little bit. Another shout out to the Beer Belly Deli and Pub in Syracuse for the awesome grub and freshly tapped cask samples on my way home from Lewiston. That's owned by, partially owned. One of the co-owners is my good friend Ben Tupper, friend from back in college when we were back in Syracuse. Free Will's releasing their annual cancer awareness collab, Saison des Roses, this week. Lord Business will be hitting the shelves soon. Saucony Creek has hit their crowdfunding goal. That means full steam ahead for their first ever crawler release. Pizza Boy released Eternal Sunshine, Doughboy, and Trung Latte this week. Oh man, that and so much more. There's so much news to get to today, folks, that we're just going to have to bump the space news altogether this week. I want to remind everybody to tune into The Rick Smith Show on Free Speech TV this and every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can stream the show live at freespeech.org. You can also tune in on the Dish Network, DirecTV, or through the Free Speech TV app on Roku. If you missed the show, just go to thericksmithshow.com and click on the Free Speech TV icon in the sidebar. You get it right there. And if you like what you hear here at Raging Chicken Press, well, I'll tell you. Why don't you become a member? It's really not much to ask when you come right down to it, right? Seriously. You can become a member of Raging Chicken for as little as $5 a month. Simply go to ragingchickenpress.org and look for the Support and Membership tab. Click Become a Member, and you're on your way. Not ready to become a member? No problem. You can make a one-time donation by clicking Donate. And I don't know if everybody heard my Out the Coop Extra this past week, but it was a good one. Had a great interview with Chris Robe on his new book, looking at anarchist filmmakers. It was pretty freaking awesome. And we're going to have a little special for you. You can get Chris Robe's book by becoming a member at the $10 a month level. You got that? I think you'd like it, right? Because it's a pretty awesome book, right? And I'll give you some more details right before we hit the next break. So, man, here we are, Sean. It is, I don't know, the aftermath of like an absolutely amazing electoral sweep across the country. Man, it's got me feeling a little upbeat today, I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty awesome right now. I mean, we're doing this. This is an off-year election. You know, it's usually a historically low voter turnout election, but you know, people came out and they fucking voted this time around. I mean, that's all I think I got to say. Like, people came out and voted.
Yeah, well, all right, there you go. That's all you got to say. All right, well, on the show today, folks, we're off. No.
But no, I mean, it's a great feeling. Like when, you know, these people who, like, you know, we've met here. I think it's like why I was trying to think about this, like starting off, but you know, it's like sort of like the whole reason why we write for this, you know, state and like local issues. And, you know, there's a whole lot of winning done on the state or on the local side in Pennsylvania, but also, you know, like in Virginia, for instance, where like they almost flipped the House of Delegates after like a 20-some seat deficit.
Unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable. And you know, and I guess it points right to some of the, you know, the effectiveness of the strategy by DSA, by iRevolution members, and everything who are really pushing to organize at the, you know, at the local and state level. Pretty impressive. And
also not just those groups, like, you know, also like groups like East Penn Democrats. You know, Lehigh Valley had some big wins.
Exactly.
You know, your party activists who actually got involved. You know, who've been involved, and you know, you have a lot more people who are motivated to run now, especially in the wake of last year's election. And you know, those people ran for the first time and they won.
They did indeed. They did indeed. We're going to get into all that. We're going to, like I said in the intro today, that's probably going to make up the bulk of today's show, just because there's so much to cover, and you know, there are some things we're just not going to get to today, just because it seems really worthwhile to focus on this. We want to run through a couple things first, but I mean, you cannot not talk about Roy Moore. I mean, Roy Moore, you heard the little clip in the opening music today, and that was from the night before the primary election in Alabama, where he's basically saying they're waiting to see what Alabama voters are going to do, and sure enough, they chose him. And it turns out that he chose a 14-year-old girl, right, and some other kind of young girls to go after when he was assistant district attorney back in Alabama. And, you know, that's just opening up the floodgates on all sorts of accusations. And, you know, I was listening to last night, Rachel Maddow's show, had this reporter on from Alabama who's basically saying, like, yeah, there's, you know, Maddow was asking him, you know, so what do you think? Is it going to have an impact? We're starting to see, you know, Mitch McConnell of the Republicans saying that he should step down or get out of the way or kind of pull himself out of the race. And this guy's like, no, he's not going to come out of the race. As a matter of fact, you're probably going to start seeing some support from some sectors of Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, this is 2017, man.
Well,
that's all I gotta say. This is welcome to 2017.
Well, and you were telling me this morning that he was getting some support right there, some pretty crazy support.
Yeah, I mean, this is 2017. We are at a point where it's okay to defend someone who sexually assaults or is a pedophile running as a Republican, because this is where like the Republican base has drugged the rest of the country. The Alabama Auditor General Jim Ziegler, I think is his like whatever. This is what he said. This is actual quote on defending Moore. He's clean as a hound's tooth, Ziegler claimed before relying on scripture to defend Moore. Take the Bible. Zechariah and Elizabeth, for instance. Zechariah was extremely old to marry Elizabeth, and they became the parents of John the Baptist. Ziegler said, choosing his words carefully before invoking Christ. And take Joseph and Mary. Mary was a teenager, and Joseph was an adult carpenter. They became the parents of Jesus. There's just nothing immoral or illegal here. Ziegler concluded, maybe just a little bit unusual.
I mean, what the hell do you do with that? You know what I mean? I mean, that is so freaking nuts.
If I was like, I wouldn't know what I was doing if I'd be the journalist right there. And then like, my jaw just dropped.
I don't know how you could not keep your jaw from dropping when you're listening to somebody say that. I mean, really. I mean,
yeah,
you're sitting basically saying there's nothing. I think he's got to get Milo Yiannopoulos on the phone now, basically, and getting like consultation about what's the most effective way to defend pedophilia. Right? I mean, I was waiting for that. After hearing that, I was waiting to start hearing defenses like, yeah, these people saying that he shouldn't kind of like, have like dates with a 14-year-old. That's just political correctness. I was waiting for that line to come out. I mean, seriously, I mean, holy crap, what these people will go to.
I mean, this is like we're defending like Mormon cult type stuff right here. I mean, like this is like Jessup, like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Marrying 14-year-old women, and this is the Quiverfold movement, pretty much. Dominionist Christians, like I'm a man, I should be able to marry whoever I want as long as they're here barefoot and give me children. This is like, I mean, I think that's the basis of this like line of thinking. I mean, I think it's like the rationale of it, but I mean. This is 2017, and we do have laws and standards here.
I don't even know what to freaking do with these.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the fact that no people are going to support this. People will probably double down on this.
Well, I like, in that Vox piece that you're kind of quoting from, right? That Vox piece is great because they go through all the different arguments that are coming up. And some of my favorite are actually the ones that, others have gone silent. And there's these reporters there. There's one guy, Brian Lyman, who's basically mostly radio silence from the Alabama Republican Party and officials right now regarding the Moore accusations. My favorite one from Elena Plott, right? She writes from the Washingtonian, right? Says, nobody will answer my calls other than Richard Shelby, right? Because they're just like, oh my God, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And then,
if we stay silent long enough, they'll go away.
Well, or they're going to become, the new Messiah, apparently. You know what I mean? And he's like, holy crap, man. But, Roy Moore, this guy is doubling down just as this, as suspected.
Totally predictable.
Right, and my prediction will be that he's gonna stick into it. He's gonna stick to in the race, and then he's gonna be at first. Republicans are gonna make a little show about being uneasy about it, but then they're just gonna incorporate him right in as he goes and gives them the votes that they want.
Yeah,
crazy, man. Just a brief note too as well, but it's been interesting seeing some of the reactions to Donna Brazile's book continue to piss off Democrats. I actually listened to it as an audiobook on my journeys up to New York this past week, and what's fascinating about it is like number one, how hard it is to actually get a clean line on kind of what her book is about, given the fact that you've got the Hillary campaign and some of the Bernie folks in the Bernie campaigns wanting to kind of like, either like reject this book or kind of like, or kind of claim that it kind of, shows that the entire election was completely manipulated. And it's not quite that, like what Donna Brazile said. But what stood out to me more than anything else is basically how quickly some of the folks from the Hillary campaign and those kind of centrist Democrats, corporate Democrats, were willing to throw her under the bus. Because it's just been fascinating to see. As like again, I got my own issues with Donna Brazile in terms of her politics and her commitment to the Democratic Party and things like this. But you put that aside for a second. For someone who basically came out despite her differences with some of the folks in the Clinton campaign and some of the fights that she had to do, and basically still went to the mat for them and supported, was a full-on Hillary supporter, supported that campaign right through. And then the minute that she writes this book, they're willing to kind of throw her like under the bus. That tells you a lot about where those folks' commitments are. So,
well, I mean, like 25% of those folks voted for Palin and McCain in 2008.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So, ain't no surprise there.
Exactly. The one thing I think, for our listeners, and some of the things that we've been talking about for a while now, what was very interesting to me about it, and I think for me the most fascinating line through just kind of where my own kind of specific interests are, had to do with some of the discussions internal to the Clinton campaign and the kind of people that they employed and the kind of models that they were using and the kind of campaign that they were running. If you recall, shortly after the election, we started hearing back from people here in Pennsylvania who are basically saying, look, everybody was running on these models and they were not sending anybody into the field. Nobody could get yard signs and all this. And in this book, Brazile basically confirms that was something that was going on nationwide, given the stranglehold that these kind of like data folks and kind of professional white collar campaigners, consultants and things basically had on the control of the campaign. I just hope this is going to facilitate the death nail that's getting pounded into the coffin of that brand of Democratic politics.
Yeah, if anything proved this week, if that they're going to take that route. I saw a tweet put out there that 100% of resources spent by the DNC in Virginia this past week went towards local races, door knocking, and getting people out there. Nothing went towards TV ads.
Which is awesome. Which is awesome. And, and I think that, I do think, I'm hoping that some of the stuff that will trickle up to the national level at some point. I'm not holding my breath for that too as well.
No, I think this came from Perez's DNC.
Well, no, I mean, that's a really good thing, right? All I'm saying is like to see if some of the candidates who actually have the mic, Perez, the fact is that, some people are going to pay attention to what Perez is doing, what he's not doing and that kind of stuff. But really the cameras are going to be on Schumer and other folks here. And I just had to this is just a really side note before we jump into the full election stuff. But in New York Times coverage of of the election, kind of seeing, holy crap, look at what's going on here. What's going to be the impact now? And there was starting to be some discussions about some of the part of the fallout of Tuesday's elections were going to be that the Republican tax plan is going to be at risk, right? So rather than basically, get behind the message that won all these people seats, Chuck Schumer comes out and basically says, our Republican friends better look out, said Schumer, right? He predicted that Republicans' plans to roll back state and local tax deductions would be devastating to the party's candidates in suburban districts. I'm like, what are you, a consultant for the Republican Party? Like, my friends in the Republican Party better be careful.
No, it's like, we're going to kick your ass on this issue in the suburbs. If you guys end up voting for this tax bill.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. That's what he should be saying. Instead, literally, he was wagging his finger, literally, right?
Because I guarantee you, there's a lot of uneasy Republicans in some of these gerrymandered districts. Pretty much everything just came in play in Pennsylvania after the other night.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, so let's get into it, man. Huge nationwide wins, Sean.
Jump right in, yeah. Oh my God. Where do we start off with? We want to start off with Lee Carter.
Yeah, let's start off with Lee Carter. I mean, he's kind of what a great window into some of the dynamics behind these electoral victories.
Yeah, so Lee Carter is a Marine veteran, DSA member, IT consultant in I guess Northern Virginia, near the DC part of Virginia, in a Republican suburb. I was actually reading into it beforehand. That district voted, for Hillary Clinton by 16%.
Yep.
That House district where he's at, but the whip, is keeping his job. because it's an off-year election when Virginia decides to do everything. But, Lee Carter blew this guy out by like 10 points. And he ran on an unabashed, yes, he was a proud DSA member, but he ran an unabashed 30, like millennial progressive campaign. I mean, what else is to say there?
No, exactly. And there was so much going on in that race. Like number one, he's got some of these credentials that you see like in traditional political candidates, right? The fact that he's a Marine veteran, right? That, he's active. So he's got these kind of, creds, but he, like, just like you said, he was unabashed, kind of running from the left. Right.
Yeah.
And every attempt on the part of the Virginia Republicans, like to, basically brand this guy, to red bait this guy, just completely fell flat.
I think the best was the mailer they sent out with the, he had like Mao, Lenin, Stalin, everyone marks like all lined up with him, just like a goofy photo of him. And then on the right, it says, doesn't support blah, blah, blah. It doesn't support the balanced budget amendment, which is actually something, it's a horrible, fucking balanced budgets are horrible because it affects poor people the most. And, you do this balanced budget stuff. So he wants to be unconstitutional with this. And then it's like Democrats call socialist healthcare plan unacceptable. Support socialist healthcare plan.
Exactly.
Like,
it was nuts, man.
And then also, I mean, the thing is, like, you look at the Virginia Democratic Party didn't want to help him out because he wasn't giving his data over to them. Supposedly, his fundraising data got sent around to people who shouldn't have got it, outside the Virginia DNC. And so he decided to cut off ties with them. But it looks like he got support from a lot of local Democratic parties, like on the township and county level.
Right.
And then he also got a lot of financial support from your unions and from groups like Planned Parenthood.
Well, there you go. Right, because he was unafraid to run on kind of overtly progressive like agenda. I mean, and basically not going to hide from the fact that he comes out of the left, not to hide from the fact that the guy's he's
a socialist,
a socialist, right? And even his Victory Party, right? I mean, it was one of the first things that came out of his Victory Party.
Yeah, his Victory Party. They sang "Solidarity Forever,"
How
which
about
is
that?
awesome.
I mean, literally. I mean, as someone who's
"Solidarity Forever" in a Confederate state.
I mean, it's something. I mean, I'll tell you, to coming out of...
And then also the video he sent you, I sent you earlier. He got the questionnaire form from National Right to Work Committee, and he had a video of him putting it into a shredder. It was right in front of a whiteboard. It said Union Strong on
it was awesome. Yeah, we have to put a link to this in the show notes because it's really great. So the National Right to Work Committee, right, because, the kind of anti-worker committee, after elections, right, they want to kind of get people's, they're going to start their lobbying efforts, right, see where this person is. So they send them this kind of questionnaire. It's got the letterhead, National Right to Work Committee. And so all you see in the front is you see the letterhead, right, and then you don't quite know what's going on. All of a sudden you hear... and it goes down and starts to shred, and emerged behind it is the whiteboard, which just as Sean said, it says Union Strong. And they're right back to him. They tweet back to him like, well, I guess thank you for the the clear message.
And so the Virginia Chamber tweets out and is like, does this mean your official position to support overturning right to work in Virginia? Would love to know, because #curious. Yes, I will work to overturn Virginia's right to work laws. Union busting legislation hurts Virginian families. And it says, thank you for a straight answer. We stand with the individual's right to choose between a perfect union and not the requirement of for their employment.
Well, I mean, there you go. I mean, I can't tell you how incredibly refreshing it is to hear people talk like this, right? An elected official come out and just say, yes, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to work to get rid of right to work. I'm not going to pull any punches here, right? I mean, this is the kind of voices that I think, this is what motivates.
This is winning messaging right here.
Exactly, right?
Like,
and it's messaging that actually corresponds with a set of core values and policies, right? It's not just kind of like, like consultant tested, like PR stuff.
Third way stuff from the middle of Wisconsin postmortem.
Exactly.
Which is an excellent episode of Chapo Trap House when they spend half the episode talking about, these third way consultants going through Wisconsin, and their partisan bias was going off when they were speaking to the union members there who were talking about how they're getting screwed over by Scott Walker. Oh, well, they're just too partisan.
Right. Or they come out of it and they said, well, after talking to these workers and they talk about the impact, really, I guess what people want is really a limited government and kind of like free trade policies, like whatever. Because they can't,
a pharmaceutical ran healthcare industry.
Right. It's like, dudes, you cannot put the square peg through the round hole. Can't do it. It's just not what it is.
But no, these DSA victories show that A, people are running as term socialists. They don't care. Getting support by this group, they don't care. And B, it's messaging that wins. It's that simple.
Exactly.
You don't need a lot of money when you have a fucking message that wins.
No, it's absolutely right. And when you campaign hard and you're not afraid to kind of go on, this is why I think another huge win, like in my mind, was Danica Roem, right? I hope I'm saying her name right. Is she's the first ever transgendered woman to be elected in statewide office in Virginia, right? And she actually defeated the guy who was basically promoting
20-year incumbent.
20 plus year incumbent, right? Yeah. And the guy who was basically forwarding all the discriminatory bathroom bills, right, in Virginia. So not only was she the first transgendered woman to be elected to statewide office, but she beat back the anti-transgender guy. Right. And the thing is that her campaign was really focused on actually doing things, saying the government can do things for all of us. Things like fix the freaking roads. Right. And the thing is like what that says, I think.
And also her campaign speech, her victory speech was phenomenal.
Oh, God, it was amazing.
That was something coming out of someone who's like a seasoned, like a seasoned politician who's been in for 30 years.
No, exactly. And she came out and it was like this kind of like gracious and like in control, forward looking kind of message you could come out of. You know what I mean? Like she didn't kind of like go like use that as an opportunity to kind of bash that guy. She just was like, we're all moving forward here, right? And then you started seeing hope as opposed to like the backward looking kind of like, it's okay to screw around with 14-year-olds because Jesus, right? We're not going that way anymore. We're moving forward.
Yeah. It's.
No, I look at her stuff, and like the reason why that was so important too is it shows you that when you're actually you have a platform, you have a message that we can do things together, we can fix problems together, and it will even get past what a lot of people thought was going to be her undoing, right? The fact that she was a transgendered woman, right? People voted for her because of what she was standing for, right? And that is like we got to get the message out, look, yes. All the stuff that we've been looking at, like the concerns that around gender issues, around sexuality and stuff, and how those cultural politics have been have been such a detriment to the Democratic Party because the Republicans have wielded them though. So the Democrats basically just kind of shy away from them. And really the way that they've shied away from them is the worst possible way. They've kind of like gutted out all their messaging, gutted out actually the programs and gone off into this weird direction where you have Danica Roem coming in and she's like, nope, I'm a out transgendered woman and here's what we're going to do together, right? And people are like, yep, I'm going to fix the roads. Yep, we're going to do stuff together. Yep, we're not going to do this other crap that we saw before. it's just unbelievable.
Yeah. And no, the stuff, we got to talk about here with the DSA.
Yeah.
These victories were big. It wasn't just in Virginia where they weren't winning in progressive areas of the country.
Well, listen, wait, hold on just one second. Let's just I want to tie up the thing in Virginia first before we get into this because where Sean's going right now, we're gonna run through like what actually happened nationwide here. That this is not just limited to Virginia, but the key thing about what happened in Virginia, like number one, as Sean said, yes, we got the gubernatorial election there. We saw all these wins, right? The Democrats thought that maybe that they could get, they could
flip
gain
the House.
They thought optimistically they could probably gain 10 seats in the House of Delegates in Virginia, right? They actually got to the point where it was tied, right? And right now we were looking at it before we came on today. It looks like the Republicans are probably going to still hold on to this. Right?
A 2-seat majority at the most.
But this is they basically erased a 30 plus seat.
Yeah, 30-seat deficit.
That's enormous. That's unbelievable. And this is despite the heavy gerrymandering in the state, right? And I think Dave Weigel was right on about this week when, people were saying, well, look, see, this shows you that gerrymandering, still, doesn't really affect anything. And he came back and said, no. It does actually. It actually says the fact that, you still had overwhelming majorities of Democrats win this and you still have a Republican majority shows you that gerrymandering wins. So gerrymandering still has an effect on the election because if there wasn't the gerrymander, what's that?
It slows everything down.
Well, exactly.
If they weren't heavily gerrymandered, if they were gerrymandered more moderately, the Democrats would have had huge gains.
Oh my God, it would easily flip the House. So that's the other part about Virginia, about looking at a whole range of different issues through the lens of what goes on there, especially in a state, right, that is, it's been, it used to be solidly Republican, and now it's a quote-unquote purple state, right, and it's starting to move in these kind of directions. Now, the real question is that what's the shape of that moving forward? And these wins on Tuesday in Virginia are really interesting because that may actually set an agenda about saying, no, it's the progressive Democrats that are going to win there, right? That's the direction of the party to push even a place like Virginia forward. So anyways, I just wanted to tie that one piece up because the House of Delegates thing was really important there too as well.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think this is the type of thing where what we're going to see, what I'm going to get talked to actually about this, back in August, right around the time of the convention, the DSA convention, the Chicago alderman Rosa, I have to pull up his full name, but he was getting. Okay, so Carlos Ramirez Rosa from Chicago, the city alderman, who's a proud DSA member, right? Mm-hmm. He was talking about, Democrats is just a label on the ballot. These DSA folks are talking about running people within inside the Democratic Party to just gain access on the ballot, and that's all they see the Democratic Party as a vehicle to get access on the ballot. And this should be very alarming for the traditional Democratic Party, where if you're not going to there's going to be serious challenges coming out from the left on this. And if they're going to run as Democrats and run on the Democratic Socialist platform to reform the party, you're going to have a whole entire you're bringing in a young generation of people, and they're doing it on their own. They're not doing it with you, which is something they should be afraid of.
Yeah, incredible.
I mean, the fact that they're talking about they're just running on Democratic tickets, and they ran and they had successes across the country. I mean, pull it up. They had seen a couple big victories out here in Pittsburgh. But the one thing that really gets me is they took town council seats,
right,
or school board seats in your more traditionally conservative areas of the country.
Exactly. Let's look at this, for example. Here's a really cool example about, if you go back to what was happening after the Trump election, for example, with Indivisible, right? With people affiliated more progressive wings, progressive Democrats, but also kind of DSA members who basically said, look, we're going to get involved with our kind of local party apparatus and we're going to run local stuff. We're seeing the fruits of that work that started way back in kind of December and January. So if you look at Massachusetts, for example, right? All 7 of the alderman candidates for the city of Somersville, right, that were endorsed by Our Revolution, right, that, the Bernie Sanders organization that came out of that, they won. All 7 of them. That's huge, right? And again, it's the kind of thing that the progressives, the left, has not been paying attention to. And now you're talking about all 7 candidates winning. That's awesome.
Yeah. You had a couple socialists, one in New York City, receive 10,000 or 7,000 votes, a third of the vote, as a Green Party candidate, running against a Democrat. You think about it, whatever, the guy, no, he pulled 30% of the vote, which is pretty significant for someone who never ran in politics before. And running on a socialist message. You had someone else in Minneapolis who didn't make it, but I think her name was Ginger Jensen. She, because the ranked choice voting, she got 34% of the first place votes, but didn't win the nomination, didn't win the council seat.
That's huge.
But I mean, 34% first place votes as a socialist. $15 an hour minimum wage,
it's unreal. I mean, the Jacobin has an awesome listing of some of these things going across the country. Let me give you an example. Let's read through kind of just a section so people get a flavor of actually what took place. So again, this is from Jacobin's article, and so there's the Massachusetts thing. We kind of talked about that, but here's this. So indeed, for those asking the question, quote, can a Democratic Socialist actually win a spot on city council? The answer appears overwhelmingly to be yes. In Knoxville, Tennessee, folks, socialist Seema Singh Perez became the city's first Indian American council member, running a campaign focused on reducing domestic violence, ensuring jobs with livable wages, and instituting fairer economic development. Right? The city council now has 4 women for the first time. Other city council seat victories for socialists include self-described Democratic Socialist Tristan Rader in Lakewood, Ohio, and DSA members Denise Joy in Billings, Montana, who won by more than 800 votes. Charles Decker in New Haven, Connecticut, Justin Farmer in Hamden, Connecticut, and Joel Cypress, who won 67% of the vote in Duluth, right? Duluth 2nd District. Former DSA Buffalo Vice Chair Brian Nowak also won seats in Cheektowaga, as did dues-paying DSA member Ross Gruders, who ran a campaign championing clean water and living wages. Meanwhile, Democrat Anita Prizio, a DSA member and small business owner who ran on increased transparency, greater fracking oversight, and setting up county jail's investigative task force, narrowly beat Republican incumbent to take the county seat right here in Allegheny County, north of Pittsburgh. Right, and it goes on. Right, we're going to get into some of the Pennsylvania stuff afterwards. But if you look at that, I mean, that's huge. We're talking like Duluth. Right, we're talking Billings, right? These are these are
beacons of red brand progressivism. This isn't like.
But these are the places. These are the very places, right, that the Democratic Party has written off to say that we can't run in these things, and we're not going to support that. And yet we see that the efforts of the organization, people kind of running.
You run, people vote.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, it's mind numbing. It's just like you run, people vote. Like that's the. I mean, and you run it as an actual campaign. You don't run it yeah. It's. I guess it's what happens when you have a bunch of union organizers and people who are organizers as activists running actual political campaigns. They're running an actual campaign. This is like door knocking, coalition building. It's basic organizing 101.
No, and I'll tell you, let me, and this is also, and it's not just when you have unions doing this, because look, unions have historically been the foot soldiers of the Democratic Party. The difference here is if you have union members who are going door knocking versus union members who are psyched about the candidates and the message of the candidates doing door knocking, you've basically increased your reach like triple fold right there. Like I can remember, for example, working with some local labor folks. This is early on when I moved to Pennsylvania, and it was during the John Kerry presidential campaign, right? And if anybody remembers that is listening to this today, is that John Kerry's was probably one of the most uninspiring campaigns that I've witnessed in recent years.
Tops Hillary Clinton's campaign.
Oh my God! It was like man, it was so dull. It was so bad. And that was it. I mean, after, yeah, oh, God, it's going to run. Judging on bad memories, man.
Became the punchline.
Well, it did. And instead we get I'm John Kerry. Just I'm one president. Whatever.
I have 3 purple stars.
Watch me duck hunt. Right? Seriously, it was like.
But I get a cheesesteak with Swiss.
Right, exactly. And so exactly. That's exactly right. Do you have could maybe some mayo and some white bread, maybe? But it was so. I remember, I was working as was new to the labor movement in Pennsylvania at that point because I just recently moved, and I was actually talking to some of the people at some of the labor councils and say, man, this, Howard Dean had people charged up and ready to go, and this guy, I can't get behind this guy, right? And this one guy from the labor council said was like, yeah, but what else are we really going to do? I mean, this other guy, we get Bush or we get this guy, right? And then he said, so I'm going to do the work, right? So then he actually picks up the phone and kind of makes another call, in support of Kerry. That, again, that's labor doing work, right, to support these candidates. That as opposed to labor who are charged up. Right. If you look at this past, these smaller elections, man, you had filled union halls. You had people charged up and happy and looking forward, getting behind the candidates. And that carries over. That carries over and builds momentum for these candidates.
Yeah. I mean, the fact Lee Carter singing Solidarity Forever. that is freaking awesome. You have someone like that. I mean, like, these people care. And the thing is, it's like it's the younger generation getting involved too.
Yes.
Mostly with a lot of these races, millennials or people in their mid-30s and younger are getting involved with these races. Lee Carter, I think, is only 30 years old. Like, I don't believe Danica Roem is any much older than that. Like, I mean, there's people who are getting in politics for the first time, and they're blowing out dinosaurs.
It's incredible.
Yeah,
it's incredible. I mean, I think, as someone, look, I mean, I grew up, I'll pull the whole age thing now, right? So, I mean, I grew up at a time when it was still the Cold War, right? I was still young then, right? Well, I mean, right through high school. It was like when the wall finally came down in, it was college, I guess, is when the wall came down. But, I grew up in that context when you started even mentioning socialism or communism, right, or that kind of stuff, and kind of anything left of the Democratic Party, that, you were on thin ice, right, because, because of nuclear war, or because of that, and, trying to sort out what it actually means to be a socialist, what it means to be on the left, when the only example you had was the Soviet Union, right? I remember, that being that context where, red baiting was just was easy for the right wing and for Democrats, for that matter. Democrats did the same thing. To see this now, right, where that history and that thing is dying on the vine is so amazing to see. And it's the kind of thing that when you grow up in that context, you don't think you're going to see this moment, right, when people are openly talking about a different future, openly talking about alternatives to capitalism, openly talking about how to actually win progressive campaigns. I mean, it's astounding.
Yeah, and they're doing it in Virginia of all places, Billings, Montana. Like, it's
even look at what happened in Maine, right?
Yeah.
Even in Maine, right? Paul LePage,
Medicaid expansion.
Exactly, 60% of Maine voters came out in support of expanding Medicaid. Right. I mean, and this is actually, so basically, Paul LePage was going to veto any of that stuff. Well, guess what? Not no more, because it coming out 60% victory Maine voters. He can't touch it. Right. They even found ways of going around that. That's amazing to me.
Yeah. This puts, I think we'll talk about this in our members only thing, but this puts Pennsylvania in play in 2018.
Potentially, right? I mean, I can't. I'm feeling good right now, but my
I can't get
optimism.
behind that, but no,
my optimism will go to next week, and that's about it.
You could start talking about it as if it should be a possibility, and
I agree.
Like,
yes,
like it should start being talked like it's a possibility, and people are going to be, and it's not going to be the party that's going to do it. It's going to be these people like Lee Carter, Danica Roem, and others pushing, forward on races they have no business winning.
No, and I guess, you know what? Now, this has just been, conversations I've seen with kind of friends on social media and things like this in the state, that, these electoral wins on Tuesday, it's creating a snowball effect.
Like, who's going to step up and run in the Philadelphia suburbs?
Well, I mean, I know people now who not just Philadelphia suburbs. I know people who want to run, like, in Berks County. Right? They want to run in Schuylkill County, right? They want to run in these other areas, right? And they know they might not win that first time round, but they're thinking about being in this for the long haul. That is huge.
Yeah. And who knows if you pick off a couple seats like that.
Well, exactly. And and you think about what it does to the politics of it. If, like, suddenly, even if you lose, but you lose with 40%, 45% of the vote, or even closer than that, right now, suddenly you're basically doing what the Republicans have been doing to the Democratic Party for a long time now. Is now suddenly all those races that were supposedly safe for Republicans are no longer safe for Republicans, right? And that is, a real key thing. And yeah, we'll get into more of this in the members only show when we're talking about little strategy and that kind of stuff. But it's. I mean, I haven't felt this hopeful in a long time.
Yeah,
they're pretty cool. All right, folks. Anything else you want to get into, actually, before we take a break, Sean?
No, let's just jump right back in on the other side.
All right, that sounds good. All right, we're going to come up. We're coming up for a break right now. But before we go for break, I want to give you some of the details on the kind of our new membership offer. Like I mentioned in the onset, kind of held you out that little kernel, dangled out the little teaser. So this week on the Out the Coop Extra, I interviewed Chris Robe on his new book, Breaking the Spell: A History of Anarchist Filmmakers, Videotape Guerrillas, and Digital Ninjas. It's a fantastic book, and actually there's a good chunk of it, is a segment of it that actually brings us right through Pennsylvania, where we go down to the media mobilizing project down in Philadelphia with Todd Wolfson and so on. Chris actually has worked with them. Chris has actually did his graduate work here in Pennsylvania, and so some of the focus of this book actually does touches on some of the history in Pennsylvania. So it's really fascinating. If you haven't checked out that interview yet, please do. It's Breaking the Spell. So he's got this great book. It's from independent publisher PM Press, and if you come in as a member of Raging Chicken Press at the $10 a month level, we will send you Chris's book and as a thank you, along with a bunch of Raging Chicken swag and things like this. We're really going to need to ramp up some of the organizing here. If you look at what just happened in this this election on Tuesday, if that we have an opportunity to have a major impact on the elections in Pennsylvania, and by we, I don't just mean Raging Chicken Press, but I mean the progressive left, and we want to be there to kind of help give voice to these movements, help give voice to these races. But we can only do that with your help. So please consider become a member of Raging Chicken Press. Just go to ragingchickenpress.org, click on the support and membership tab, become a member at the $10 a month level, and we'll send you Chris Robe's book, Breaking the Spell. If you don't want to become a member right now, but you still want to contribute, you can click on donate instead and make a one-time contribution right there. So this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. We'll be back right after this, and we'll get into PA Election Day.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1933. That was the day that Hormel plant workers in Austin, Minnesota began a sit-down strike. The company head, Jay Hormel, boasted that his company was a benevolent dictatorship. Workers agreed that the company was a dictatorship, but not very benevolent. The 1929 stock market crash and Great Depression hit the Hormel plant hard. Hormel implemented a plan to spread the work to keep as many workers employed as possible. Some workers called the plan Spread the Misery. There was a major reduction in the number of hours worked by each employee. Due to the policy, Hormel employees joined the ranks of the working poor. By the spring of 1933, Hormel workers were seriously discontent. Few knew much about union organizing. However, one worker, Joseph Ellis, had been involved in labor organizing in the past. When he was hired at Hormel, the company did not check into his background. Ellis was eventually made a casing room foreman. From there, he could hire and fire workers. He began hiring former meatpacking union and IWW members. The workers organized and won union recognition, but little else. For one thing, the company never gave the union a copy of their signed contract. Hormel also refused to raise wages. And on this historic day, union members gathered in a show of solidarity. They did not plan to strike, but had hoped to get the attention of the company by taking a strike vote. However, after the vote to strike passed, enthusiastic union members rushed to the plant. The workers there suspended all operations. A strike was underway. And nearly a month later, the State Industrial Commission mandated wage increases for all the workers.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back to Raging Chicken's Out the Coop podcast. And so we're talking about the national picture in this kind of election day wrap-up. Pretty incredible. And that was not limited to places out there. A lot of the victories, a lot of some amazing news came right out of here in Pennsylvania. So, Sean, man, take us through it.
Yeah, I guess first up on the list, Chester County Democrats take control of two row offices occupied by Republicans. The GOP has had a stranglehold on these offices since 17 1799.
Yeah, let that sink in, everybody.
Pre-industrial
1799.
Revolution. like a decade after the
Wow.
ratification of the Constitution, pretty
Wow.
much.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, like let's put that in like like historical senses. That's like a decade after we ratified the U.S. Constitution.
That's incredible, man.
I mean, like Republicans have held those seats since like the 1790s. Jesus Christ.
Now let's, and we should say, I mean, we've been seeing kind of things moving in this way for a while, right? I mean, you've seen these moving more, leaning more Democratic than we've seen before. So people, I know the Democratic Party nationwide has been looking at these areas and that kind of stuff. But what's incredible here is that what switched it.
The floodgates just opened.
Exactly.
I mean, this is Chester County. This is like borderline rural Bible Belt. Like, this is when you get to the Bible Belt part of Pennsylvania, like the parts of Chester County out there. I mean, like, next county over, you're at Lancaster, and that's it. Like, you're pretty much outside of the Philadelphia area at that point.
Yep.
Like, this is the outest reaches of the Philadelphia metro area. And boom, like, floodgates just opened, and the countywide races went Democrat for the first time. That must have a lot of people looking at their futures in politics.
Did you think? And actually both sides of the aisle on that too as well. I think because we're seeing that what carried that was not the consultant rich kind of corporate Democratic Party, but was actually the power of the progressive grassroots.
Yeah. Moving up next, Dems in Delaware County, win first ever county offices. They take 2 seats on the county council and 3 row offices. I think this is the first time since like 1980 when there had to be minority representation on the county council that a Democrat's been on this seat, or there's been a majority.
Unbelievable, man.
The last time a Democrat served on the county council was in 1980. No Democrat has served on the body since the Home Rule Charter eliminated the requirement for minority party representation.
There you have it. Huge.
37 years.
Huge.
I mean, what else do you have to say after that? I mean, the Democrats in the Philadelphia area have just taken over counties that were Republican strongholds for generations.
It's incredible. And I think that, again, I don't want to do any raining on parades right now, right? But, again, the lesson here, this has everything to do with where the energy and where the momentum was, right? So this is not the kind of thing that, the Democratic Party or something like this could say, okay, yeah, things are moving in that direction. It's going to be, the playbook is going to be, once again, this kind of momentum-based organizing that has been pushing things in this direction. So, man, kudos. Pretty amazing.
Also, Democrats in the Lehigh Valley and Northampton County. Lehigh and Northampton County saw some big election wins. Up there, a shout out to the Democrats up there. I mean, you're seeing parts of the state that, Here, women. Okay, so here's an extra. I just spotted the name of someone who I didn't even know was running. It's a Facebook friend of mine, Tara Zrinsky. But it's like, women ward locally too. The only one of 4 Republican incumbents to win another term in the Northampton County Council was the only woman, Peg Ferraro. Among others, she'll be joined by 2 female Democratic newcomers, Tara Zrinsky and Lori Vargo Hefner. Another newcomer, Democrat Amy Zanelli, easily won her contested race for a district seat on the Lehigh County Commissioners.
Impressive. And, we talked about some of those folks up there in the Lehigh Valley who've been doing some organizing.
East Penn Democratic Club.
East Penn Democratic Club, exactly.
The indivisible groups up there.
Exactly. And those are the folks that have been on the ground. We just recently, for those of you, and if anybody of you listen to the Majority Report podcast too as well, there's this one guy who calls in the members only section all the time, Mike from PA. He's up from the Lehigh Valley. he was just kind of walking through, and apparently Mike was saying that, look, they're planning on establishing a DSA chapter up in the Lehigh Valley now, which, you know, we were talking about on this show for a bit. We've been poking around on social media looking for folks. And so that is huge news because, you know, I will keep on coming back to this. In my mind, the Lehigh Valley is the future of Pennsylvania. Is that if the organizing that has been, you know, like Make the Road has been doing fantastic organizing in the Lehigh Valley. You've been seeing like East Penn Democratic Club has been increasing presence. Some of the individual groups that are kind of have you know, are at this point now are well established all throughout the Lehigh Valley from east to
I mean, they have
Mifflin.
Costello running for his political life at this point.
Exactly. And this is absolutely critical. And I think so that, you know, the hearing that they're thinking about establishing a kind of like a left center in the Lehigh Valley, man, is like, you know, I'm all in on that because that's the Lehigh Valley is going to be the future of where this state goes.
Yeah. And then, you know, DSA members had huge victories out in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They have 2 endorsed candidates and self-proclaimed members that took a judge's seat, a district judge's seat, and also a county council seat. So Mikolai Meek Pappas is a civil rights attorney. He's a DSA member, and he was endorsed by the DSA. He ran as a district judge. He knocked out a 24-year incumbent.
Just unreal.
Like,
I like to see this too, as well. That you know, if you look at the variety of seats that we're seeing here, the fact that we're talking about taking judgeships,
and he was running on a campaign to get rid of for bail reform.
Exactly. It was so it wasn't just that he had like a D after his name or something like that.
And landlord-tenant issues.
Yes, exactly. The kind of stuff that matters to people in their everyday life, right? I mean, imagine that.
Yeah. So here we go. Here's another thing from Payday Report. Running under the slogan of "I don't sell out, I sell auto parts," 54-year-old DSA member Anita Prizio filmed TV ads promising bad puns and good policy. Her campaign focused on the need for more transparency in local government, tackling the opioid crisis, and combating lead poisoning affecting Pittsburgh area residents. Her quickly outsider campaign garnered the support of DSA and Our Revolution.
Yeah,
Despite running in some of the richest suburbs of Pittsburgh, as well as some of the inner city neighborhoods, Prizio was able to knock off incumbent Republican County Councilman Ed Kress by a margin of 50.8 to 49.1. However, here we go. Then it goes on to this. However, the most stunning victory was the defeat of 24-year incumbent District Judge Ron Costa. Costa. That's a very powerful political name out in Western PA politics.
Yes, it is indeed. And listen, I want you to listen to, before we move on from Anita Prizio. Here's the you're not gonna be able to see the audio of the video, obviously, but this is the bad puns good policy ad that she had, right? So just listen to this. So I mean, it also gives you just a sense of the energy of the campaign, right? And the kind of like, you know, the life that has been missing, right, from progressive politics, especially electoral politics. So this is her.
I'm Anita Prizio, and this is my small business. These are all bearings. It's about time that County Council gets its bearings on the opiate epidemic. It's time we spring into action to solve the problems in our county jail.
She's holding a spring.
This is a timing set. It's about time that we deal with our infrastructure problems, our lead problem, and the transparency on council problem. My name is Anita Prizio. I don't approve of these puns, but I do approve of this message because I want to be your voice on county council.
I love it. I love it. You know, it's just kind of like this do 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 do, and it's, you know, it's this sense of playfulness, right? And then even come like, I don't approve of these puns, but I'm going to do this. It's a little bit corny, right? But it's like it's alive, and she's basically saying we're going to go after these things.
Yeah. So. You know, So next up on the Payday Report. However, the most stunning victory was the defeat of 24-year incumbent District Judge Ron Costa by independent candidate Mike Pappas, a civil rights lawyer and former staffer to legendary progressive state senator Jim Furlow, the lifelong Pittsburgh resident. Pappas ran under the slogan, "Addiction is not a crime." As District Justice, Pappas pledged to reduce mass incarceration and implement principles of restorative justice. This radical platform garnered the attention of progressives nationally and earned him first ever endorsement issued in a judicial race by the Bernie Sanders backed group Our Revolution.
There you go.
Pappas DSA endorsement prompted Judge Costa, an old school machine Democrat, to send a letter to thousands of his constituents, warning them that you need to know that the DSA is a splinter group that has called for the elimination of prisons and police, as well as drastic changes to our law. So here we go. We have a Democrat using the red baiting.
Yep, there you go. And I think that right, but you know what? What they weren't counting on was the fact of saying, like, people are like, yeah, I kind of agree with that. You're sounding like you're saying that's a bad thing, right? I mean, and they're like, yeah, we kind of agree with what you just said, that it's a bad thing about this guy. So, and then from what I understand too, that was nowhere on the map in terms of they thought that this was winnable.
Yeah. He won by an 11-point margin.
Yeah, 11 points. I mean, that's unreal. I mean, get out of here.
Here we go. So next, despite the red baiting and lacking a position on the ballot as a Democrat, Pappas trounced the 24-year incumbent Costa by an 11-point margin. Pappas mobilized over 100 volunteers throughout the district and increased the voter turnout from 5,800 votes in the district justice election in 2011 to 8,900 votes in 2017.
Unbelievable.
A fucking judge's race, and you get a 3,000-point uptick in votes.
Yeah, I would call that statistically significant. Holy cow, man.
But this is what happens when you run actual campaigns on things and you motivate people to fucking vote. Like, people came out and won. I guess this goes into, right, like Larry Krasner. The other big thing of the night, because
the thing is that before we get into Krasner, it's like the point you just made, I think, is an important one, is that when you run the campaign. But I think here's the interesting thing, right? And this is we always hear how, if you look at polling, if you actually poll people on issues but
they're contesting receipts that no one would normally contest.
Well, no, but exactly. But it's also like the character of the campaign, right? Because it's that. When you poll people on issues like, for example, single payer, right, about minimum wage, about all the things that we would look at in terms of and call progressive issues or left issues, right? They're overwhelmingly popular, right? Now, what the Democratic Party has done for a long time, they assume that because that some of those things are somewhere in their policy papers, that people will automatically associate with them and will vote for them, but they don't. But and so there's been always this big question, like, well, why is it that people don't vote in their own economic interests? Why is it that people, even despite the Republicans taking all this stuff away, that they don't vote for Democrats? Well, it's because Democrats are not running on those issues, right? Now they are, and look at what the results are. If you don't walk away from what you're supposed to believe and you actually stand by what you believe and you advocate for something, people are on board.
Yeah, it's
crazy.
Not like it's like 1 + 1 = 3 here. It's pretty simple to figure out.
No, it's like, duh. That's really what it is. It's not even math. So yeah, take us to Krasner, man, because this has gotten in the national spotlight. Larry Krasner's whole campaign from the get-go has been talked about as potentially being one of the most significant races nationally.
Yeah. So, Krasner won the nomination back in May, I guess, right? When the primaries are?
So, yeah. May, I think.
Yeah. He won. Basically all he had to do was seal the deal. But he still ran the campaign through to the election line, and he won by like 40 points.
Yeah, 40 points.
Yeah. Completely unelectable progressive Larry Krasner wins DA's race. And one of the biggest things that the Philadelphia Daily News the Philadelphia Inquirer came out against him, basically saying you're having an activist running the office and you can't have that. Well, guess what?
Yep. You got an activist running the office. And again,
and this is someone who is running not to seek higher office here. He is running to change this office, and that's it.
Right.
This office has been a stepping stone for Pennsylvania politics, those in Pennsylvania politics for a while. when Abraham tried to run for mayor a couple of times. Ed Rendell, eventually became the mayor and then the governor of Pennsylvania. People have used this. Arlen Specter used that to propel his Senate career. People have used this office for higher offices, but Krasner's like, no, I'm coming in here just to change the system. That's it.
Well, and it's been a hard fought road for him to get to this point, right? I mean, the thing is that, he's cut his teeth working in the community. I mean, you've been talking about his story for a long time now. Yeah.
He's been defending the Occupy protesters, defending Black Lives Matter protesters, suing the city over issues, and he has generally helps out people in any community in the city. And he's sued the police department 75 times and won a majority of his cases against the department.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, and the fact is that, in a city like Philadelphia, there you go, right? Now you have an opportunity to kind of turn things around. And we talked about this last week, but, you got Mayor Kenney basically saying, yep, we're going to take over the public schools in Philadelphia. And now you've got Larry Krasner saying, we're going to end the nonsense, right? And we're actually going to bring justice to kind of law enforcement in the city. I mean, holy crap, this may be like a major historical turning point for the city of Philadelphia.
Yeah. It's it certainly is interesting to see where progressive politics go in the city, because I think progressive winners are not going to be the outliers in Philadelphia anymore.
Nope, I don't think I don't think the progressives are going to be in the out. I mean, this is especially with Rendell.
I mean, with a city with a tight Democratic machine controlled by Johnny Dock and and Johnny Dock, I think that that machine is dying.
Yeah. And the thing is like, some of the lessons that I think are to be taken away from this election. Again, we'll talk about this a little bit more on the members only show today. But some of the lessons to be taken away then is that when you have these like heavy Democratic majority districts or cities like Philadelphia, for example, there are opportunities then to kind of run from the left, right? To basically saying, look, there's like, finding Republicans in Philadelphia is hard, right? So then getting to the point where you're actually saying, okay, well, the Democratic Party, right, cannot be a mono party, right? So let's challenge it from the left, right? Whether it's as a Democrat, right, through primaries, right, or is even from kind of third parties within the city. And that's pretty impressive. You saw some of this stuff in New York City where Working Families Party is actually – there's talk now of Working Families Party actually running candidates as working family parties, not just, kind of like amended onto the Democratic Party. So, I mean, really, really interesting possibilities going here.
Yeah. And then we also saw something pretty remarkable happen out here in York, Pennsylvania.
Yes.
I give a big shout out to Vanessa for her article outlining Michael Helfrich's mayoral run.
Vanessa!
I didn't think Helfrich would win, but no, he pulled out an upset. He's a former Green Party member, became a Democratic council member of York City Council. He challenged Kim Bracey in the primary, and then he challenged her in a way where, yes, he challenged her on the Democratic ballot, but he also probably ran a campaign to shore up the write-in on the Republican side, pulled in like 300 write-in votes on the Republican ticket. So he secured a ballot spot as a Republican on the as a Democrat on the Republican ballot line, and he beat Bracey in the general election.
Yeah, pretty impressive. And like, here's a perfect example, folks, about how important it is to have people familiar with different areas and covering what's happening outside of the major metropolitan areas in this state, right? Vanessa, right? She's originally from New York, from York rather. She's from York. She doesn't live there right now, but she's familiar enough with what's happening in that city and the kind of the background that she had her attention on this one. And she brought that to us early on. And, again, boom, she nailed it. She nailed kind of what was going to be happening and the potential for a progressive win here, despite the fact that he was running on the Republican ticket, right? Because he barely lost.
And like the national DNC was supposedly dumping money into this race.
Exactly. So, yeah. And boom. gone, right? So, I mean, this is absolutely amazing. So imagine if we had actually people placed, not just, we had people covering York and Lancaster and Scranton and Wilkes-Barre, and we had people up all throughout the kind of the Marcellus Shale region. That's kind of the direction that we want to go, because, man, if we start putting spotlights on these areas and actually help these candidates kind of get their message out for kind of a really progressive message, man, there's a whole lot of possibility that's just scratching on the surface. This has been John Fetterman's argument, through his last campaigns too as well. Yeah,
no, and it's very smart politics the way he ran. Okay, I'm going to run as a Democrat, but also be able to secure up the nomination. I mean, it's such a small area where people still know who you are. You're not like a major city of 1.5 million people. So you run on that, you secure that Republican ticket, and you know what? We'll take it to the November general, and he won.
Yes, he did. And he won pretty handily too as well. It was a pretty good victory.
Yeah, I think he won by a few points, but he definitely pulled off the upset.
No, but that's what I mean. It was it didn't come down to like 15 votes, right? He won by a couple points, and coming in running on a party that's not his party, right? He's served on the city council for a long period of time, right? He's been on. It was so people were familiar with him. He was people knew what he was about. Came out of the kind of the Green Party, out of the progressive left, had served as the Lower Susquehanna Riverkeeper Network, right? So, I mean, this guy was, read Vanessa's piece on this, because it shows you this guy's credentials, and that he was kind of tapped into the community, and man, he won.
And he won.
And once again, another win. Man, it feels pretty good.
This is what winning feels like. I don't know if with Trump would say we're gonna have a whole lot of winning. I guess this is what winning.
Yeah, I begrudgingly have to say that he was right. We're winning so much, but you know what? I still want to win.
I want to win some more.
Yeah, I want to win some more. It's it's addictive, man. I just want to win now. So crazy. Oh, man. So before, Sean, any other races we should pay attention to before we kind of move on and go to a break?
No, I think that's everything.
All right,
and Pulowski wins.
And Pulowski wins. So that was a complicated race. You had a write-in candidate that basically came in that actually aided, that kind of benefited Pulowski on that one. I've really got to look at that situation a little bit more, because he's up on charges, corruption charges, and things like this, which is
I'm sure he played some dirty politicking to get that.
Yeah, I don't feel very good. I don't see that as a huge win. Sorry, Ed, but when you start talking about corruption and kind of dealing with your friends and things like that, I don't get too happy about it. But all the more reason I would argue, Sean, is this is a perfect example, is that Allentown is ripe for a progressive alternative. Because I think
there's 60,000 voters there, and he won he got 6,000 votes.
There you go.
In a 5-way race. I mean, there's easily you can tap into something there pretty easily. And
yep, exactly. I agree.
Yeah.
So the one thing we want to get to before we actually go for a break and get into kind of beer news of the week is that another story. This is kind of non-electoral story, but I mean, after the horrific shooting that took place down in Texas, where the guy walked into a church and just kind of mowed down a bunch of people, shortly after that, Dr. Colleen Clemens, she's a colleague of mine at Kutztown University. She's also part of our friends over there at the Inside 254 podcast. She basically tweeted out, say it with me, everybody. Toxic masculinity is killing us. Toxic masculinity is killing us, right? And I have to say, I said virtually the kind of same thing in a different kind of tweet and things like this, and other people were saying that too as well. But because the fact is, she's chair of the kind of women and gender studies at Kutztown University, and she used those terms, toxic masculinity, the right wing just kind of latched onto that. The Washington Free Beacon, which is a kind of a right-wing conservative, billionaire-backed, publication, online publication out of Washington Post, kind of looked her up for an interview, and they published a piece on it. And now that has kind of gone out. InfoWars has picked this thing up. Daily Wire and other publications like that picked this up. And now she is being targeted directly by these right-wing people, making all sorts of threats to her, doing everything that you've seen by these kind of right-wing trolls, kind of going after her. So what I hope to do at some point, maybe next week or the week after, I want to get her on, maybe for an Out the Coop Extra, to talk a little about the situation and kind of what she's been the target of, and what this means in terms of like what the right is doing and what the kind of some of the politics of the right continues to be, where they're just trying to kind of go after and threaten individuals, try to intimidate them with submission. Now, I know Colleen very well. There's no way in hell she's going to be intimidated. But, you know, these are who these people are. All the more reason that we have to build up this kind of progressive background. So if I have one ask from you, listeners of Out the Coop, is that go on over to Inside 254 Podcast. You can look it up on Podbean. They got on Facebook and so on. And let them know that Raging Chicken Press has got their back, and that you, as listeners of Raging Chicken Press, readers of Raging Chicken Press, kind of lend your support to her and that podcast too as well, because they're going to be talking about this issue on their podcast, and I urge you to check it out and give them comments and notes of support. Check them out on Twitter. Send those notes of support over there and say that we always stand together in resistance to this kind of hateful behavior. It's nuts, man. Well, here we go. With that, that's the one call to action for the week. After an amazing kind of electoral victories across the state and across the country, I'm really looking forward to hearing what is going to happen as we move forward at the organizing efforts for 2018. Which, again, remind you folks, if you can, become a member of Raging Chicken Press. Especially if you can join us up at the $10 a month level, we'll send you Chris Robay's new book, Breaking the Spell: A History of Anarchist Filmmakers, Videotape Guerrillas, and Digital Ninjas, coming at the $10 a month and help us build out our network even more for what promises to be a really potentially amazing 2018 electoral season. And we will be talking about that more on today's members only show. You can become a member of Raging Chicken Press by going to ragingchickenpress.org, click on the support and membership tab, and become a member today. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. We will be back right after this short break. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Over the past 6 years, we've brought unapologetic, progressive, activist media to Pennsylvania and beyond. We've helped hold those in power accountable and shine a light on some amazing activist work. We've broken national stories and established a reputation as an aggressive, independent media site. As newsrooms close and traditional journalists lose their jobs, hard-hitting investigative news suffers. If we care about our democracy, we have to find new, sustainable models of journalism. And frankly, no one's going to do it for us. After the Trump election, we dug in even deeper. Thanks to some longtime members, one-time donations, and a shift in other resources, we brought on more writers and started paying them. Now we're doubling down and want to expand our infrastructure and pay our writers even more. We need to invest in our media if we have a chance to resist the unprecedented assault on democracy, working families, women's rights, and our planet. History will remember the choices we make today. So take a minute to become a member of Raging Chicken Press. For as little as $5 a month, the price of a local craft beer or a cup of coffee, you will be supporting homegrown progressive journalists and media activists. Go to ragingchickenpress.org and click on the Support and Membership tab to become a member. Leave a one-time donation or learn about other ways that you can help. We don't have billionaire backers. Keeping progressive activist media going strong depends on you. Thank you for all your help and support. Keep up the fight. Welcome back to Raging Chicken Radio's Out the Coop podcast. It's today's last call. And boy, we got the beer news today, I have to say. I was, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I was up in Lewiston, New York, Niagara Falls, New York, for my grandmother's funeral this past week. She was 99 years old, kind of amazing woman. She bowled up until about 2 years ago. She lived on her own for up until last year. It was kind of incredible hearing some of the history and some of the stories. It's been a long time since I've been together with my whole family on my mom's side. I'm kind of talking a little bit about kind of where we are. You've seen my cousin's kids grow up. All this kind of stuff was pretty amazing. So when we were sitting there, as I was driving in to Lewiston, which is where my grandmother lived, I was driving in on was it Tuesday night? Tuesday during the day, actually. I left early in the morning on Tuesday, so I was driving in. I just was searching to see, like, hey, there's any kind of craft beer stuff in the area and that kind of stuff. And it turns out there was a brewery right in Lewiston called Brickyard Brewing Company, I believe. I was like, oh, that looks really cool. Then I just saw there was this other place. It was called the Brewed and Bottled Craft Beer Shop, right? I said, oh, okay. You know what? I'll just kind of stop by. It looks like they had a pretty decent selection. I'll just swing by there. It was literally 2 blocks from where I was staying. So I'll stop in there and just kind of check it out and maybe grab a couple local bottles and things like this. And I did. So I stopped, and the guy who was running the place, this young guy, I'm spacing the guy's name, which kills me. I have to send him this. I'll send him a link to this show afterwards. But it was awesome, right? It was like this little shop that was kind of they had a few kind of tall tables set up, and they had like basically a tap room, and then a big bottle shop and stuff. And this guy was awesome, and so I picked up a bunch of beer, and so we got to talking, and I said, he's like, where are you from? I said, oh, outside Philadelphia. He was like, oh, man, Philadelphia, it's like a mecca. I said, yeah, for beer? And I said, yeah, by the way, I said, do you know Pizza Boy? And do you know Free Will Brewing? And his eyes nearly popped out of his head. He's like, oh my God, yeah. He said, I was just at Pizza Boy last week because we had to go down to Philly for some kind of craft or show that they were kind of doing or something like this. We went down there, right, and we stopped at Pizza Boy. We're planning on we're spending about a half an hour there on our way there. There's no way we got out of there in a half an hour, right? And so we were going back and forth. I said, well, listen, next time you go down, I gave him your name. And I was like, you got a Sean Kitchen, works at Pizza Boy, right? So I worked there, and I said I live in Percy, which is where Free Will is. She's like, you're kidding me? She's like, their sours are unbelievable. I'm like, yes. So it was kind of like this real cool point of connection. This guy kind of knows this area well, and so hopefully he's going to come in and he's going to come into Pizza Boy next time he's down there, and he's going to look you up. So, but as part of it, I got some just really awesome beer. From stuff, right? Something I haven't tried yet. So here's one. I pulled them out of my fridge so I could actually just read them. So one from Stillwater Brewing Company. Stillwater Brewing Company is from Rochester, New York. I've got this one that I haven't opened yet. It's called a Cafe. It's a coffee infused Belgian triple, right? I had one of theirs, a stout of theirs. I guess back when I was in Lewiston, that was fantastic. Another one from Flying Bison. Which I, again, have yet to try this one out. Flying Bison is from where? I think it's from Buffalo, right? Yep, from Buffalo, New York. Blackbird Stout. And they also actually have licensed out one of the brewery in Utica, New York, my hometown, to kind of brew some of their stuff too as well. And then I did have this other one. It's called the IPA number 4. It was fantastic, right? This one was brewed in Hamilton, Ontario. That's one of the things I always like to go if I'm going up in that neck of the woods, because literally Lewiston is, we used to walk down to the Niagara River from my grandmother's house, which is like 2 blocks from there, and across the Niagara River is Canada, right? So you get a lot of the Canadian beer and stuff like that produced there. And I don't remember, Sean, if a couple of years back I brought back some bottles there from the Yeti Stout or something like this. I brought back from Canada, but that stuff was fantastic.
I was looking for a place. I know we had a couple customers come in about a couple months ago from the Hudson Valley part.
Yeah.
And there's a place called Sloop that's really good. New York's got some good craft beers that are popping up.
Yeah, they really do. So it was kind of cool. So when we were there at this little place, we also tried this one called Snow Clouds. I tried it. It was a stout. It was really, really good. Is by the North Brewery in Endicott, New York. Tried out this other thing called Turf Talk from Mikkeller. Do you know Mikkeller Brewing Company from San Diego?
Mikkeller. Yep.
Mikkeller. Yeah, they had a couple of theirs on tap. They had just tapped the kegs, which is fantastic. One Turf Talk, which was super, and another one was this. It was called Beer Geek Brunch Weasel, right? Which was an Imperial Oatmeal Stout. That one was smooth as anything. That thing was fantastic.
Nice.
So
Mikkeller he has a twin out there called Evil Twin Brewing.
Oh, that's the same people?
Well, it's his twin brother, and they hate each other.
Oh, get out of here.
Yeah, no, like so there was like this they have an actual like sibling hatred for each other, like deep-seated hatred. And they're both brewers and they just troll, like they do stuff just like try to piss the other one off. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah. So like McKellar, so there's some cool history there with McKellar. He's from I think like Amsterdam.
New York?
Or Denmark.
Oh, there. I thought you meant Amsterdam, New York. I'm like, what? No, so like Denmark. No. Gotcha. No, very cool. That stuff was fantastic. And there's one other shout out to one. This was a really other interesting one, a barrel aged saison called Superfunk number 5 from Hermit Thrush Brewery in Brattleboro, Vermont. Have you ever heard of that one, Sean?
I have not.
I haven't either. Even though I was up in Vermont a couple times, kind of looking for local stuff, I had never come across them. But this thing was fantastic, right? It was a nice, really nice sour kick to it, and not overpowering in terms of its barrel age. Because sometimes I've had some sours that they do the barrel age, and it's like overpowered by the oak, and it's just this one was like had a little bit of sour tinge and it had a really nice flavor all the way through it. So I want us to give a shout out to those folks up at Brewed and Bottled Craft Beer Shop in Lewiston, New York. I'm going to kind of tag them in this so they can hear that too as well, because I welcome them. And, after at the end of my my grandmother's wake on Tuesday night, my cousins and I kind of walked over there because literally, I mean, it was... God, 200 feet from where the funeral parlor was. So we walked. I said, hey, guys, why don't you go ahead and come over here? I was in this place before. I went in there, and he was super. He let us sample some things. Just was absolutely just like thrilled for coming up. Just an all-around great guy. If you're ever up in that neck of the woods over by Niagara Falls, definitely check these folks out, the Brewed and Bottled Craft Beer Shop in Lewiston, New York. So pretty cool, man.
Mm-hmm.
So you had Pizza Boy had some more releases this week, huh?
Yes. Let's see. They put out the Chung Latte. It's a 3% Vietnamese coffee stout. It's really nice.
Awesome.
There is
awesome.
There's the Doughboy New England style IPA, which came out pretty clear.
Is it good? Pretty clear. I see.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And I'm trying to think the last one. Oh, the Eternal Sunshine's back, which is their dry hop sour that they're known for, which is like drinking sour lemonade. It's really freaking good.
Yeah, it's really good, refreshing, but just awesome. Well, we have Free Will has actually come out with a Saison de Rose. This is their annual cancer awareness collaboration, and this year they changed it up just a little bit by they aged it for about 9 months in wine barrels. That is available now at Free Will. And Lord Business, which I've talked about it on the show before when they first released it, they just kind of went through another canning of Lord Business, and that's like an 8.9 double IPA. And so not only are there fresh cans that are available at the brewery and their Peddler's Village location, but it is going to be hitting the shelves pretty soon at some local retailers. And I hope that happens because this beer is going to take off. I mean, that Lord Business, I loved it, man.
Nice. And I see that they have the Lego movie characters,
yes,
right?
Yes, exactly.
For a lot of their stuff.
Well, you got to see. If you click on the show notes, folks, where you have the Lord Business one, and you got to see their can. The can is awesome, right? So it's this green background, and you've got like a green Jesus kind of looking off into the distance, but he's in a business suit with a red tie. It's awesome, right?
Nice.
Yeah, it was funny. And the last bit of news I have, like I said, we had a lot of beer news today. Saucony Creek, I mentioned this last week. They were crowdfunding to basically for their first can release, right? They wanted a crowdfund so that they can hit a goal so that they could bring in a crawler machine and so that they could can this New England IPA that they have called Thorndor on a pogo stick. And they met their goal, so that means the crawler machine's coming in, and but the only way you can get it is you go to Saucony Creek. You look for their Facebook event. I actually go to their Facebook page. It's probably the best way to do it. Or just look in the show notes and click there. You got to get tickets through Eventbrite, right? To get your cans that day. So I've already got my tickets for it. So they're going to be released on the 22nd for pickup. So it's pretty cool to see yet kind of another local brewery kind of make its way into the canning process.
Yeah, no, their stuff's getting a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, it's I love seeing that. I love seeing, I've been a fan of theirs from the beginning, right? And always want to support local breweries. And, it's one of the reasons I will always support free will, always kind of go and support Saucony Creek, is because Saucony Creek's in Kutztown where I work, and free will is right down the road from me, literally walking distance from my house, and so it's been great to kind of follow them, right? To see the stuff that they're releasing, being able to stop in their tap rooms and just sample some of the stuff that they're trying out, and not everything works, right? But their Saucony Creek stuff has been getting better and better. So their saisons I really like that they come out of there, but they've also been doing some really interesting stouts, which we'll see if they ever where they go with those, because some of the original stouts that their first are coming out, I wasn't a huge fan of, but man, their stuff is getting good.
Yeah.
Cool, man. So, hey, anything else for the good of the order?
No, nothing really. Just, become a member and listen to our, we're listening to how the Democrats can take back the Pennsylvania House in the next segment.
There you go. That's what we're going to be doing the members only show. And I'll tell you, that's what Sean is itching to get moving on, because he's getting distracted by kind of sports news right now. So we're going to have to sign off here just so we can keep Sean's attention long enough to get to the members only show. Anyways, all right. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Thank you all for tuning in today. It's been a week of good news after many months of not so great news or horrible news. So let's keep up the fight, everybody. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Look forward to seeing you soon, folks. See ya!